Good evening, everyone. Salam alaikum. Hope you're able to hear me. Yeah, yeah. Let's start. Good evening, everyone. Again. I guess people are still joining. Let's wait for another 2 minutes. Yeah. So this is the second session. Let's. Meanwhile, if the people are joining, I will take a recap of the last session so that we'll, utilize the time. Yeah. The last week's session, Azure DevOps first steps, we have done it. And today's session is about Azure DevOps, infrastructure automation, Azure DevOps terraforming, today's session. And after this session, we have another couple of sessions followed by, the build and deploy web apps. And the next session, about Azure Kubernetes. These are the sessions which are planned in, coming next Azure Mondays. Today, we are going to discuss about Azure DevOps terraforming. Yeah, this is about bio about me. I'm the cloud solution architect, and these are my certifications. And yeah, let's skip this. Last week we already discussed. Today's agenda: the infrastructure automation. What is infrastructure automation? And the desired state configuration, Azure automation. What is ARM templates, and what is Terraform, and how Azure DevOps is supporting the infra ops and repos and pipelines, and how we are going to create the first pipeline, the release pipeline to deploy the Azure infrastructure using Azure DevOps. This is the agenda today. To take a recap about the last week's session, what we discussed, Azure provides, the Microsoft provides two kinds of offerings when it comes to Azure DevOps. One is Azure DevOps Services and Azure DevOps Server. Here today on the last session also, we are presenting about Azure DevOps Services, which is a cloud offering. To take a recap, here you see the DevOps lifecycle. Here, where the DevOps fits in, when it comes to planning, we have Azure boards here, where the team can collaborate between and plan things, and then they can plan the sprints, and then the product backlogs can be created, and each task can be, all these things can be done in the boards. And when it comes to the repository, Azure provides a Azure DevOps has a repos where they the cloud native cloud hosted private Git is the Azure repos. And pipelines. By using Azure pipelines, you can do a build and and deploy the CI/CD pipelines. And we have the testing plans. Using testing plans, we can have your testing script, and the pipeline can integrate with the testing plans. And using during the pipeline, you can incorporate your testing plans. And artifacts is the last one. The Azure DevOps Services offering. Whenever you build your the pipeline, you can store the artifacts in the Azure DevOps artifacts, and then those artifacts can be used in the release pipelines. We will be seeing those how to utilize artifacts in the third session. Today's session, we are going to see the release pipelines and the repos. We are going to utilize repos and pipelines to deploy the Azure infrastructure. This is the recap of last session. Today's today's agenda. Let's talk about the infrastructure automation. What is infrastructure automation? Who is it really aimed at? If you're a developer or an administrator, you can use the infrastructure automation. What it is for, when you want to deploy the workloads, faster, consistent, and reducing the number of the human interactions. Using automation, we can achieve this. In order to move quickly, you need to have the decreased amount of time to provision the cloud infrastructure. If having the cloud infrastructure and you're not able to deploy the cloud infrastructure deployments, which will not going to help us to move faster. In case of on-premises, when it comes to when a developer requests a VM on the on-premises, the amount of time it is going to take 3 to 4 days, or I say minimum 1 week. When it comes to cloud, you have the infrastructure, the IaaS offering in Azure, where everything is available: network, storage, compute. Using the Azure DevOps or an infrastructure automation, you can speed up your the infrastructure deployment. You can have the VM, all the resources. Not only it comes to from storage account, network, any other Azure service offerings can be deployed using Azure DevOps with the help of infrastructure automation. What it is going to give you an advantage. Every time you do the pipeline, it will give you the same result. Every time you deploy using the pipeline, it gives the same result. And also, when it comes to the infrastructure, the variables, it eliminates the variability and it gives the infrastructure the same. We will see that how in case if somebody changes the configuration, how we are going to retain those configurations when it comes to DevOps, using DevOps. As a developer, for me, we can speed up, rapidly deploying the new environments. As a developer using Azure DevOps, you can deploy the environments rapidly, and by let's say in the morning you need one environment, you create it, and the evening you go and destroy it. Using DevOps, you can do that. We will see that in the upcoming demo. And this is about infrastructure automation. It is as a developer you can use it, or an administrator you can use it, or an ops guy you want to ramp up the infrastructure development onto the cloud using the Azure DevOps, so we can achieve that. Azure provides a few other options. We are going to see that now. When it comes to infrastructure as a code, what is infrastructure as a code? Infrastructure as a code is nothing but the infrastructure complete configuration is in a human readable declarative, the format, which we will see that now. Where the most of the tasks, when you're going to perform, when the infrastructure is being created, the number of screens you need to move, or the number of options you need to do, all these will be reduced. And at the same time, you will have the deployments, automated deployments. These are the tools where it supports the the infrastructure as a code. These are the tools which are currently available. We will see one today. The session is about Terraform. And when it comes to desired, what is desired state configuration? Desired state configuration is when you want to have a host. Your host need to be host setup need to be done through code. Let's say you have uh, a Windows VM and you want to do some changes inside the VM using Windows PowerShell. You can do that using the desired state configuration PowerShell. And also Ansible also supports this configuration. Using Ansible, we can Ansible provides simply, the when it comes to Ansible playbooks, you have a configuration absent or present. These two, when you say it is absent, the Ansible makes that configuration as a in case if it is present, it will make it absent. If you say present, if not there is the configuration, it will recreate it. Ansible is a powerful tool for configuration management. These are the few of the tools widely available for us when it comes to infrastructure automation. But today's main focus on Terraform. Using Terraform and Azure DevOps, how we are going to deploy the infrastructure to Azure. Also, Azure provides various other services. For example, if you take about Azure Automation, Azure Automation is one of the service in Azure where using your Azure Automation, you can manage your infrastructure rather than creating your infrastructure. This is the difference. I just point the to show the difference. What Azure Automation, you may be getting confused when Azure Automation is available. Why we need a Terraform? Terraform is used to create the infrastructure. But when it comes to Azure Automation using runbooks, we can manage the infrastructure what is deployed rather than create. It won't support for creation. Yeah. The another, I would say, the functionality of Azure Resource Manager templates, ARM templates, using ARM templates, also using Azure DevOps and ARM templates, you can also do the infrastructure deployment. But this is the hectic, the ARM templates are in a JSON format. If you see that it is strict to JSON, you should be familiar with that. In case of one mistake, you'll be end up in rounding around. So that I will show you what is ARM template. I want to differentiate how ARM templates are and then the Terraform templates are. Now the other Azure Bicep, which is under preview now, and not at the GA. Microsoft is bringing Azure Bicep. It is a kind of a domain specific language which is to deploy the Azure resources, which is domain DSL is nothing but specific to Azure. Like we have in Jenkins, you have a Groovy domain-specific language. Like the same, Microsoft is bringing up Azure Bicep. If you see the differentiation between Azure ARM and Azure Bicep, let's say you want to know how to when you are creating a VM and you want to know the host name in JSON, you have to write those references. When it comes to Bicep, it is a simple string, in one-liner string. Yet to be available for general public. Currently, it is under preview. In coming session, we'll see how Azure Bicep will be helpful. Yeah. Now the coming today's agenda, the Terraform is the tool where we can create the from low level to high level. The most of the Azure infrastructure we can create using Terraform. Terraform is the HashiCorp product. It uses HashiCorp configuration language, HCL language, which is human readable. Either Bicep or a Terraform uses a state file. What is a state file? When you use a Terraform or a Bicep, it goes and validates what is there. In case if it is a new deployment, it won't. There is nothing. In case if you're doing, let's say you have a virtual machine and the virtual machine has a kind of one data disk, one NIC card, all those, the virtual machine SKU is standard B2MS. All this information will be stored in a state. That is what we were talking about desired state configuration, or when you want to have these state Terraform or a Bicep allows you to store that state, and in case of any changes, the Terraform will revert you to the known state. Let's say you are in the portal, you are going to go and change something, but when it comes to Terraform state, it is different. We will see that in the demo. I have planned it. So Terraform, you can use Terraform with the state or no state. If you are not going to use the state, Terraform will just create the resource and it will ignore it. It will ignore it. Yeah, this is an open source, so you can use the Terraform. There is no cost involved here. Most of the 99% of the API versions of Azure ARM is supported by Terraform. It is like a Azure ARM updates. Terraform will be taking up and it will be developing the APIs. It will be having Terraform also supports preview when Azure releases an APIs in preview mode. Terraform also releases those as a preview, and using those preview, let's say you want to, for example, a storage account to want to enable the log. It was not available in the ARM feature. I think is recently released now. Terraform also supporting that. Using Terraform, you can enable the log on the storage account. So such things are is supported in Terraform. 99% of most of the times you will see that Terraform, using Terraform, you can deploy the infrastructure of Azure. Okay, let's get into little detail about the ARM template here. As I said, it's a JSON format. It's a strict JSON. What Terraform, ARM template consists of what? It has a parameters. Parameters are nothing but a values. The values of the values which need to be, which we are going to deploy. And when it comes to variables, variables are the inputs. For example, if, when you take a VM, when we are creating a VM, there is existing network which you will be using. Those are called as a variables. Let's say you don't have anything you are going to create during the VM creation, that will be considered as a parameter in the ARM template. Variables are they don't have any data types. It is just inputs. You have to provide those as inputs in the JSON template. And this is the main block, where is a resources block, where our resource configuration will be written in a JSON format. Yeah, output as shown in the previous slide. These are the outputs. Whatever the resources which we are going to create in the resource block, if you want to see that as outputs when the deployment is done, you have to write your outputs block. This is the example of the resource block. When you want to create this is the smallest, simplest, the resource which can be created quickly is the resource group, Azure resource group in the cloud. This is the resource group creation block. These are the required. When you see the location parameter, it is the location name that is coming from the parameters and the tags. Here for a resource group, there is no prerequisite. When you want to create a resource group in Azure, just you need to give the location and just create it. Tags are not mandatory. These are the two inputs it takes when you're creating a resource group. So the small example I have given here, how the ARM template consists of parameters, variables, resources, and outputs, and it is stick to JSON template. Let me show you the how it. So here. Creating a VM, selecting West Europe, and then so I was talking about the variables. And this is what the existing the inputs which we are going to provide in the configuration when you are creating a virtual machine. These are called variables. I have already a VNet which is existing, which I'm picking up. In case if you are creating a new one, that those are considered as a parameters when it comes to ARM template. So I'm picking up the existing one. I'm going to select my subnet, and I'm say I don't want any public IP. I'll quickly move forward. Here we are trying to see what is ARM template. If you go here, there is a option called download the template for automation. As I was telling, Terraform, even Azure allows you to using ARM template, you can do your automation for creating the Azure resources. As I told you, see if you see here, what is variables? What are parameters? These are the parameters. When it comes to variables, if you see here, there's our this is the network ID which is already pre-existing. Variables are nothing but the inputs which you are provided where the Azure resources already existing. When it comes to parameters which we are gonna create now. These are the things which it is going to carry forward and get created. As I told you, parameters resources. And here we don't have any outputs, but when you download these, it is a download option. You can download, and if you want, you can write the outputs file, and then you put it onto Azure DevOps. And using Azure DevOps also, you can have your the infrastructure deployment using ARM templates. So let's close this. If you see here, this is your plan. When you are creating what generally they don't speak about the plan. When you go in the last tab section of the in the portal, this is what I call it as a plan. When you are deploying your infrastructure, it talks about your what this is going to be deployed onto Azure. I say this is a plan. Why I'm saying when we get to Terraform there is a plan. It shows the same detail. There is a concept called Terraform plan where it shows what you're going to deploy. In the portal, it shows the same. I call this, the Azure ARM template has also a plan. Maybe but they don't have any such kind of language. But this is the plan which says that what you're going to do, what OS disk you are selecting, which OS you are selecting, what is the username. These are all things it will be shown, and then you can deploy it. Once you create it, will be created. The same thing today, we are going to see how we can do that, the creating of a virtual machine through Terraform rather than ARM template. As I told you, ARM templates are in a JSON format. It is quite, the difficult to read and code. This is JSON strict format. Okay, let's go back to the slide. So as I said, this is about the ARM template. I've given a brief introduction about this. Now, coming to the Terraform. What is Terraform? Terraform, as I said, it is an HashiCorp Terraform and an open source tool for enterprise is also available, but as an open source, you can use it in Azure DevOps. So we have an extension. Using extension, I'll come to that when we go to Azure DevOps. It is to manage the infrastructure in the cloud. Here, the popular tool, which is now to create and manage the infrastructure in the cloud. Yeah, yes, it is a human readable format. You will see when you see the Terraform file, you will understand very clearly how you are going to create the resources. It is a declarative. You can declare it to a configuration. What it is required to using Azure DevOps, and then how we are going to deploy the Azure resources using Terraform to Azure Cloud. In the last session, we saw the prerequisite for any Azure DevOps to start to jumpstart. You need to create an organization. You need to have a project created. Once the project is created, that day we created a service principal too. Using service principal, we are going to deploy the infrastructure resources to cloud. The what Terraform, what it can do, it can manage low level to high level. There is no limitation. You can create a network, you can create storage, even you can create your the SaaS offerings in Azure. You can even Azure SQL, you can pass or SaaS offerings, you can deploy the infrastructure, for example. And let's say the private DNS zones, you want to add a DNS entry there. Those are all things can be done using Terraform. There is no limitation. As I said, 99%, most of the resources, most of the Azure resources can be managed and created in Azure cloud. So Terraform, to understand Terraform, we have a few things. Let me. We call data sources, resources, and providers. Provider, when you talk about provider, it is nothing but a plugin, Azure plugin, where Terraform understands using Azure ARM plugin. When you write your code, it goes and reads the code, and then it correlates with the Azure ARM APIs, and then it deploys to the Azure. This is about the product provider. Provider is nothing but you just understand that as provider as a plugin, which is Azure ARM plugin, Terraform Azure provider. That is a key. When you want, there are multiple versions of it. Based on your deployment, you can use it. We'll see that in the coming slide. I think in the next slide I have it. This is the providers. The provider is nothing but Azure RM. And as I said, you can use using the service connection or a service principal. Put your subscription ID and then your service principal information here in this provider block to deploy the Azure infrastructure. And the next thing, here we're trying to understand what is Terraform and what are the core concepts of Terraform. One is the provider, which is nothing but an Azure RM plugin, which we can specify. If you see the line number 16 to 20, I mean, if you are using any Azure RM specific version, you can use that. You can mention that here. Required providers. Let's say you are deploying a resource which is not supporting in 2.4.4, 4.6. You can specify your version which is being supported. I mean, Azure ARM API plugin. Yeah, that when you go through the compatibility concepts, you will come to know that. And as I said, there is a state file which it stores the state when it is deploying the infrastructure to Azure. When you create the let's say you're creating a VM, it stores stores the entire state of the VM, what it is being created. When you rerun the pipeline again, it sees if there is any change. Since the state is already available, it correlates with what is there in the cloud and what is available in the state. In case if there are any changes, it will try to recreate what is available in the state rather than what is available in the cloud. It overwrites in what is available in the cloud. That is the use of backend. If you don't want to use the state file, you just want to create the infrastructure and forget about them, you can you no need to use the backend. Yeah, data sources. Data sources is, I was telling about the ARM template the variables, like, the existing infrastructure. Let's say you're creating a compute VM. Give me a minute. Sorry. Yeah. Data sources is nothing but the existing, let's say when you're creating a compute Azure virtual machine and you want to use the existing virtual network and the subnet, those are called as a data sources. Here you see the resource block. You are creating a network interface. Assuming using Terraform, you are creating a network card, NIC card for a virtual machine. And here there is already predefined virtual network and there is a predefined subnet. So from that you will be taking the subnet details. From that subnet, the network interface will be created. So what is data resources? Data sources are nothing but a predefined infrastructure resources where you get those information into the code and then you from there you derive it and then you create the infrastructure. If you see the line number 27, we are referring the NIC need to be created in the so and so subnet, which is pre-existing. That is resources are which we are going to create into Azure. Data sources are the existing ones. To understand in a simple way, data sources are existing resources in Azure. You are just reading those data and you are trying to use them to create the furthermore resources based on those. Let's say VNet is the parent and the child is subnet and subchild is network interface in the hierarchy. So here this is the example. When it comes to Azure Terraform, to understand, these are the concept. We have backend, we have providers, we have data sources, and then we have resources. These are the Terraform files. I think it is a little early to understand, but I'll show you in the commands. As I was telling, the Terraform init, which initialize your code, Terraform validate, which validates your code, which is there, that you have code, and Terraform plan shows the way which I've shown in the ARM template of the portal when we are creating a VM in the last section tab. The same thing Terraform plan shows you, and then the Terraform apply, which the final command, which it applies the configuration to the infrastructure. These are the Terraform files where each has its, if you compare to the ARM templates, you have variables, you have a resource block in ARM, like the same thing you have main here, and you have outputs in ARM template here also. Terraform also has on outputs, and the parameters which comes from input files. More are equivalent to, if you see the ARM template and Terraform more are equal, you can correlate them. They have their own differences. If you see what is config.tf, as we discussed in the last slide, config.tf can hold about your provider, the plugin version, and your backend, the state file. When it comes to inputs, you can do whatever the variable which you define in the variables, you can give those as inputs. Variables.tf holds the, let's say you are going to list, map, string, number. When you're defining a variable, you can have a variable types, variable data types. You can have a string, you can have a map, you can have a list. Based on that, that is the descriptive, declarative in the variables, and then for those you can give inputs in the inputs file. And the resource block, as we seen in the ARM template, here we have the same equivalent is main.file, where you have your main resource block configuration, which I have shown in here. This is the resource block for creating a network interface. Yeah, this is the first. Let's go to the pipeline. We'll see how to create our first pipeline. What is required to create a pipeline? Which is required in artifacts, and you need pipeline can have your stages. I was telling like the plan and deploy. What are artifacts? Azure DevOps gives you, these are the artifacts you can, if you have a GitHub account, you have a build, you have an artifact tree, you want to take it from Jenkins, you have Maven repo. These are all the artifacts currently available to create for a pipeline. Today I have my code is available, the Terraform code is available in Azure repos. So the highlighted one is Azure repos. We will be creating a pipeline using Azure repos. A pipeline, if you see the top, you have a pipeline stages. A pipeline stages can consist of number of tasks. This is my Windows pipeline stage number of tasks here. These are the deploy tasks. As if you recall the last session, we have talked about an extensions, a pipeline task. Extensions are available. We can go and install and use them in the pipelines. So let's see the demo. So here I have my code, which I have a Windows VM, and this is my code. To understand the code, I have a backend here. I'm storing my state in this storage account of Azure, which is already existing. As I was telling, I mean, let's say the mapping. Let's say this is the variable, tags is the variable where I have my tags declared in this way. If you see that in the, see, this is the variable, and your variable is Boolean. You can when you say Boolean, it is nothing but true or false. So it won't accept anything else. So these kind of variables you will define, and you would say default will be. Let's say I'm creating a zones here, and my default zone, if you don't not specifying any zones, it will pick up as the default values. And either you can put a default value as none, so that when you say default value is none of that particular variable, it looks into the inputs. If there is no, when you declare a variable and there is no input, your pipeline cannot continue. The Terraform waits for your input. Whatever the variables we declare here, those inputs are to be given. And if you see here, this is the VM code where you, for example, you take your SKU code. Let's say you're going to deploy your compute VM standard D2VS, and what is the data type you're going to create. These are all the inputs which we'll give in the input file, and what is the image which you are going to take. Everything can be in a declarative manner and human readable manner. This is very easy when it comes to Terraform. You can just create those variables and you can give inputs those variables. And when it goes to main, you call them, you mention them. Let's say, for example, if you take the variable, where is it, location? Let's say location, I'll show you the location. I'm having a location name as West Europe. How I am going to call that as the location in my code. If you see the line number 45, you have the location name. I'm calling a variable with the location name. Since in the input file you already given as West Europe, where during apply the location will become location is equal to West Europe. It's quite easy. When maybe during the starters it will be a little difficult, but you will be able to do it. So this is the VM code. So this is the code which I have. Also, I placed on my GitHub account. GitHub account is given in the first slide. You can go and download this VM code from the GitHub. These are the pipelines. Let's create the first pipeline. So I'm going to create a new release pipeline. So I'm taking, this is the classic UI. I'm saying my stage name. You're giving a stage name here. And I'm going to add an artifact. As I shown you, these are the 8 different types of artifacts which are available today. We are going to take it from the Azure repos. And you need to point to your project and your repository and the branch. If you have multiple branches, you can give multiple branches. This is the alias which will be shown here. Now we have this one. Now go and this is the first stage. Okay, we are going to create the first stage. So in that, we spoke in the last session, we need the agent which does our job as a compute node which runs our job in the Azure DevOps. So here I'm selecting Azure pipelines instead of my hosted ones. In the Azure pipeline, Azure agent pool, if you see, these are the available. You can use based on your requirement. Today I'm going to take the Windows 2016 agent. I'll say 16 agent to easily identify on which agent this particular stage is running on. So I'm taking the Terraform and I'm adding I'm installing it and I'm using it. For version, I'm going to take 15.4 and so here I'm going to initialize my code. Let me reduce this. So here from the repository which we added, you can point your where is your code. This is the code which I have. And this is the backend information which I was telling about is about the state file. You can use your backend configuration to know your state. So this is my Terraform init. So now I'm going to validate my code. So you have an option. These are the available option when it comes to this task. You can have your own extensions created. This is quite easy. This is created by Microsoft DevLabs. This particular Terraform task. If you see here, how do you know about? You want to know more details about this Terraform task? You see here the eye. You click on the eye. Oh. Okay, looks like this is not available. But anyways, page not found. Generally, any yeah, here it is. These are the extension Azure Pipeline extension, which is called Terraform Tool Installer. You can find the help here. So it is quite easy to understand what is this going to do by clicking on here. So now here I'm going to validate. This is my code. It is easy, you could see what I'm currently doing. I'm just trying to clone the plan. I'm going to see my plan. So what here we are doing, we are validating, and then here we go, and I'm making demo m please. So you can store that in any of the folder. Let's say I'm going to store under computer. I have already predefined folder. I'm going to do that. So now creating a release. I'm creating the release on this particular. The pipeline is ready and release is running now. So it is waiting for the agent to pick up the job and run the job. If you see here, this is the release which we just ran. It is happening now. If you want to see the pipeline which we created under virtual machine, is the pipeline. And this is the one which is running now. So it is downloading the artifacts and it is installing the tool which I require to run my job. I selected the Terraform tool of 0.1.15.4, which is the latest one. This is the version. Now it is initializing the code. It is TF init. It looks your code and it validates whether the access methods and everything is intact. Once it is OK, then it proceeds to the next step. If you see how fast this is happening, it is just happening within seconds. You have seen the pipeline has been created within 2 minutes of time. Once you have your code ready, pipeline creation is very easy. So this is completed. So when you go to Terraform plan, this is what I was talking about, what it is going to create. If you see the virtual machine, first it is going to create the network interface card for the VM, which we are going to create. And that is going to be this. This is the name. And the VM which we are going to apply, this is the line number 66, which I highlighted. This is the Windows demo VM name. And what is the VM SKU and which zone it is going to be created. This plan gives you in a declarative way, a human readable format, release manager or anyone can understand what the deployment is going to be deployed onto Azure using this DevOps pipelines. Here in this, we have just shown the plan. We didn't apply it. We didn't. I just go here. I edit the pipeline. So what I'm doing, I'm going to clone I'm taking a copy of it and I'm renaming it. So next stage, we are going to deploy it. Here, instead of validation, what I will do, I'm validate and apply. I don't need this task. So next stage, we are just initializing the configuration, the codes, Terraform code, and we are going to apply it. Save the pipeline. What we have done here, previously we have just created one stage, but now we have created another stage. If you see the stage, here you can have the triggers for each stage. You can have approvers. Let's say I'm going to create a trigger here. Let's see. I've created a trigger on the code when there is a git push happens to this branch, the git compute. The pipeline will automatically trigger. Let's do some change instead of demo. Let's say ABC. I'm just saying the workload is ABC Corp. So this is the change which I'm gonna done here. And let's say ABC VM 01, which will be created. I'm committing the code. You can use the IntelliJ or VS Code editors, but those during the demo, it's quite dangerous to use those tools. So I'm using directly editing on the UI here. If you see the pipeline, I didn't click anything. If you see the code triggered the pipeline. To see how whether the code is really triggered the pipeline, you go here, you click on the release, and then you go to history. You see the comment. It is triggered by repository. It is auto triggered. So here there is no in the last session there was a question how we can automate the complete end-to-end pipeline. So this pipeline is running automatic completely. As you push the code to the repository, the pipeline is triggered and the VM will be created. It will take 2 minutes. So we'll wait. Let's go to the desired state configuration, the other item which for today's agenda. Meanwhile, let this release be running here. Okay, I have another code which is created as a resource group. So to explain, there is no single way to create your code. If you see the if I want to create the resource group, everything is in a single page. It is how you want to write your Terraform code. It is up to you. If you want to put entire thing in a single page, you can put it. If you see here for a resource group, I have put the entire Terraform code in a single page. As I said, the smallest resource which can be created, which is in the Azure is resource group, which doesn't have any requires much more detail. It requires only a location. When you are creating your resource group, it asks for the location and tags are optional. In this case, this is my Terraform code to create a resource group. Okay, now if you see the plan is ready. Let's go back to the VM. We'll come back to the resource group in 2 minutes. So if you see the plan, what is your VM name, which is going to be created? Line number 66, ABC. We change it from demo to ABC. If you see the detailed entire plan, you'll be able to self-understandable. No need to explain. If you see the line 114 to 118, so the VM which is being based on a Microsoft Windows Server, which is 2019 data center latest. This is the image reference which is picking to create the VM. This is self-explanatory. You can once you go through line by line, the next time will be a little easier. This is a public project I mentioned. You can go and look at the logs by using the by clicking this URL Azure Qatar, and you can go to the each release and you can check the log. This is a public project. You can see there. Then the deploy is already started. We have another stage which has a deploy. You have seen the plan, and now the deployment is happening. If you see here, let's go to the what is the resource group we mentioned here, where the VM need to be deployed. If you see here, line number 23, this is where the VM will be created. Windows VM RG, which is being configured. And when you go to Windows VM RG, see the network interface card, it just got created. If you go to the pipeline, it is completed. You see, Terraform gives an output from the Azure ARM backend. It reads the completion status and gives you in the console log. Now what it is done, what is started creating the virtual machine. Let's go back to the Azure portal and see what is done. Now the virtual machine is also being created, and the virtual machine's OS disk is coming up. If you click on the virtual machine in the portal and you see the status, it is being commissioned, being deployed. It is not yet completed. Current state is creating. It will take two more minutes to create the VM. So just to run around these pipelines, meanwhile, whether this is happening, this is where you have pipelines and releases. Today we are seeing the classic release pipeline, and you have seen how quickly we can create the pipeline. A pipeline can have an n number of stages that can be decided by us. If you want to have just to clone the stage, you can clone the stage, and you can have an approvers here. Let's say I'm going to pre-defined approvals. Let's say for now. So when it comes to this stage, it asks for a approval. If you see here the icon, it is ticked here. So it means that when it comes to this stage, approval is required. Let's not save this. These are about the release pipelines. Sometimes it may the result output may coming fast from the as the Azure ARM replies to the the communication between backend Azure backend onto the DevOps pipeline. It is sometimes quite fast, and sometimes it takes time. It's all depends. That is where how the Azure backend responds to the Azure DevOps pipelines. So meanwhile, in the pipeline, let's learn more about the extensions. If I say new release pipeline, I think it is completed now. Okay, that's fast enough. Let's go back to the pipeline. Okay, virtual machines. Demo. You see, this is just completed, succeeded. Oh, I didn't change the name. So it is the stage name need to be changed. You see now the outputs. Okay, this is the network interface, line number 175. Let's go and see that. What is the private IP address? 10.0.1.4, the same here. And the virtual machine name. That's what the outputs, whatever the outputs you want, you can write the output code. When the infrastructure is being deployed and you want to know in the pipeline whether what is deployed and what is that information, you can write your output code here. Whenever the VM is being created, I want to know the IP of the VM which is being created. So instantly it will print here. Terraform will print here. This is how you can write your output code. Now let's go to the other the resource group. Let's create a resource group pipeline. For time being, I created already a pipeline. I think let's see this. So I have another pipeline. There is another feature called scheduling. If you enable the scheduling, what is the time now? Okay, now 1919, 1956. Let's say I'm putting for 57. So I'm scheduling it to run on the other minute, another 2 minutes. So I've enabled the scheduling now. This is nothing but it will going to destroy. As I said, as a developer, you want to have your environment created, and the evening you can schedule you can have a pipeline scheduled, and you can destroy your environment. So in the VM destroy pipeline, we have set the schedule. If you see here, there is a RG release pipeline, which the resource group is being created. What is the resource group name? If you go to the code, the resource group name is DevOps IS, infrastructure as a code resource group. Let's see what is happening here. If you see the plan, this is the plan, and this is going to be created. If you see here, plan want to add. Not started. Oh, sorry, I disconnected it. Okay, there's another feature where you can, if you see here, it doesn't have any start, the deploy option. I guess you can just to demo purpose. See, automatically you're placing them in the pipeline workflow. If you say manual, it will be here. It doesn't have any start. It won't be start unless you're putting after either after release or an after stage. Here in this case, I'm putting after release. Previously, it was not there. You can do that. So now the release pipeline is being, the resource group is being created. I think we are running out of time. Yeah, it is 9/7 now. If I go to the VM desktop pipeline, you see, and you could see who has been triggered this. This is the project collection service account. When you schedule a pipeline, your pipeline will be triggered by the project collection service accounts. This is waiting. It is being queued since the release pipeline is running. I think just now it is completed now. So release pipeline just completed and it deployed the resource group. So meanwhile, let's see the destroy pipeline. So whatever the VM which we created is being destroyed using this pipeline. So quickly you see the desired state configuration. If I go to this, for example, the resource group which we just created now, I'm going to change the tag as XYZ. I'm just changing the tag of the resource group. So just for the time being, I'm going to edit the pipeline. I'm taking this, I'm disabling this manually. And then what I'm doing, I'm putting this after release. Now I'm directly deploying it. I'm just leaving the plan out and I'm saving it. So I'm creating a release. What I have done to know the desired state configuration, the DevOps IAC, the tag value we have changed. But in the Terraform state file, it will be different. You'll see that now. Okay, I think this destroy is completed. Now, if you see the let me take a output Terraform destroy, it will be deleted. But anyway, let's see the this pipeline, the resource group, the desired state configuration. If you go to the overview of the resource group, if you see the workload as XYZ. But whereas when we created in the code, the workload is IAC demo. So far, I have not touched any code. In the portal, somebody changed the configuration and we are rerunning the pipeline to see how the Terraform reacts to it. If you see here, if you observe, it has detected there will be an update in place. What has happened? Somebody edited XYZ and it should be IAC. It is going to update. It is going to Terraform is going to change the Terraform as a state, which as an IAC, I think it is changed already. If you go here, the resource group and you refresh. Let me take some time. It is changed. It is changed to IAC demo by the Terraform itself. And if you keenly observe here, what it is saying in the line number 36, I found that workload IAC is changed to XYZ, which I'm going to change it. So it is reversing to from XYZ to IAC. This is the detected change, and it is going to do this. Infrastructure as a code. And this is all about infrastructure as a code. You have your infrastructure declarative in created here, and the pipeline. When you run the pipelines, if anyone misplaces the configuration of the Azure infrastructure, the Terraform will revert back to the known state, which is available. Yeah, this is all about I think today's session. Yeah. So yes, there are one question. Yes, how to install the Terraform. Yeah, the Terraform is nothing but an Azure extension, which is available there in the when you go to your Azure organization, you can see the extensions. You can browse the extension and you can install the Terraform extension on your Azure DevOps organization. In the previous demo, we have shown the Azure DevOps extensions, how to install it. Any more questions? Okay. Yeah, I think that's all for today. Thank you for attending. See you. Bye.